Alright, we got another Warframe video. We're going to be looking at some of the abilities here of Sevagoth, how to get them, where to get them. You want to tune into Game Awards, be getting a Twitch drop for them. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. We'll be adding more Warframe. One of the most unique things about Sevagoth is his shadow. While Sevagoth is formidable enough on foot, he can bring twice the destructive power by detaching and controlling his ghostly shadow to rip and tear through the opposition. Shadow functions in two ways. First is a remote-controlled minion that Sevagoth can activate by using the Reap ability. This damages and debilitates enemies while Sevagoth continues to fight normally. The second function allows you to control Sevagoth's shadow directly. This occurs whenever you activate his ultimate ability, Exalted Shadow, or whenever he would normally fall in battle. Sevagoth's shadow and his claws are exalted weapons. That means they can be equipped with the mods in the arsenal, exactly the same as normal Warframe's weapons to boost their power and abilities. Make sure you know though, in Warframe you never need to acquire or upgrade multiple copies of the same mod. This is true even when using the same mod on both Warframe and its exalted weapons. Single copy of Vitality, for example, can be equipped to both Sevagoth and Sevagoth's shadow in your arsenal at the same time. When playing Sevagoth, you'll notice that he comes with a unique resource gauge at the bottom right of your screen. This is called the Death Well. Killing enemies afflicted by Sevagoth's abilities automatically fills the Death Well. When its meter reaches 75% or higher, you can then activate Sevagoth's ultimate ability, Exalted Shadow, to transform into the shadow and control it directly. Filling the Death Well to activate Exalted Shadow is an important part of Sevagoth's playstyle. So it's important to actively use Sevagoth's other abilities, keep his energy high, keep on using them, and maximize Sevagoth's combat effectiveness. Sevagoth does not enter the normal down state like most Warframes when his health reaches 0. Instead, Sevagoth's main body automatically transforms into a tombstone while you take control of his shadow. You won't have access to the usual set of skills while in this state. Instead, you gain access to a supercharged version of the Shadow's Consume ability to dash around and deal massive damage to single targets. Killing 5 enemies with the Shadow this way will revive Sevagoth with no downside. After equipping Sevagoth in Arsenal, you should notice he comes with a special weapon category called Shadow Claws. These are another exalted weapon that Sevagoth uses when dishing out melee hits in his shadow form. While not technically a separate ability in their own right, you will need to equip the Shadow Claws with melee weapon mods to boost their destructive power, just like the Shadow itself. So let's look at Sevagoth's abilities. Got Reap. This ability sends the shadow flying in whatever direction Sevagoth aims for a limited time. Enemies near the shadow will be afflicted with the Death's Harvest debuff. Makes them more vulnerable to damage. Killing enemies affected by this debuff fills the Death Well. So all enemies in a wide radius around Sevagoth will take damage over time. As the name implies, you can also reap what you sow. Using Reap on enemies affected by sow will cause them to detonate with radiation and blast damage. Any enemies that die while under this effect will also fill the Death Well. Next ability, Gloom, extends a wide, debilitating circle that follows Sevagoth wherever he walks. Enemies caught inside a circle are significantly slowed, whereas Sevagoth and his allies gain lifesteal on all attacks while standing inside the circle. As per usual, enemies that die while affected by Gloom will also fill the Death Well. Next, we got Exalted Shadow. Sevagoth's ultimate ability is quite unique compared to other Warframes. Exalted Shadow can only be activated after the Death Well is 75% full, after which activating the ability will transform Sevagoth into his shadow form. While in this state, the Death Well will slowly drain over time until Sevagoth is forced to transform back. Sevagoth cannot use his standard abilities, primary weapons, or secondary weapons, and his melee weapons also temporarily replaced with Shadow Claws. However, Exalted Shadow grants access to a completely different set of devastating attacks and abilities, and these will be Embrace. Sevagoth's shadow pulls and lifts all enemies in a cone-shaped area before him into a massive bodies. This is great for massing enemies into one area before finishing them off with melee swings. Consume. Sevagoth's shadow will dash forward, smashing into the first targeted enemy to deal massive radiation damage. The impact also heals Shadow and leaves any surviving target confused. When Sevagoth falls in battle and enters his tombstone form, he will automatically enter Shadow form. During this time, the Shadow's normal attacks are replaced with a supercharged version of Consume. Killing 5 enemies with Consume in this way will resurrect Sevagoth without expending the usual number of revives per mission. So you got Death's Harvest. This ability inflicts the same vulnerability debuff as the Reap skill in a wide radius around Sevagoth. All attacks and abilities will deal extra damage to enemies affected with this curse. Note that you still cannot recharge the Death Well while using Exalted Shadow, even when enemies are affected by the Death's Harvest debuff. Next we got Reunite. This ability will instantly revert Sevagoth to his standard form. While it doesn't damage or weaken enemies, it will heal Sevagoth for a significant amount of health. So here's some bonus tips here for Sevagoth. He relies heavily on Gloom to survive in his default form, since Gloom drains energy over time. However, mods and arcanes that boost energy and ability efficiency, such as Flow, Streamline, and Arcane Energize, are useful. Gloom will remain in effect even after you activate Exalted Shadow. The area of effect will continue to radiate outwards from Sevagoth's main body while you control the Shadow, but the Shadow and fellow Tenno will continue to receive the lifesteal buff while standing inside the circle. Sevagoth's Shadow only has access to melee attacks in the form of its Shadow Claws. This makes the Steel Charge Aura mod a useful and efficient choice. The mod boosts melee damage for your entire squad and even receives a capacity discount for its matching polarity type. Equipping the Preparation Exilis mod to Sevagoth's Shadow is a great way to maintain your energy reserves. This mod will automatically refill the Shadow's energy anytime you activate Exalted Shadow. So it's got some tips there for Sevagoth. You'll be getting it as a possible Twitch drop. Tune in to the Game Awards. Get ready for some more Warframe. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. We'll be adding more Warframe. So